Good morning, everybody. I hope that you can hear me okay. If you can, if you could just raise your hand, just so that I know that. Perfect, thank you. I see some hands being raised. I'm delighted to have the opportunity to welcome you to this webinar. And we are talking this morning specifically about the MSc in IoT. However, before that, we'll just do a few introductions and set the ground rules in terms of how we're going to conduct this webinar. Today, I'm speaking to you and doing the introduction from the International Office at DCU perspective. My name is Paul Smith, and I'm the Director of the International Office. Later on, you'll hear about the academic provision under the MSc in IoT from Professor Derek Malloy. We will also have Bridget Carey and Colin Cronin joining from the International Office. And what we have done is we have muted you just so that we don't have any background noise in relation to the presentation, and everybody has an equal opportunity to hear what is being said. My colleagues Bridget and Colin will be monitoring the chat, so if you have any queries, please put those into chat, and they will be monitoring it during the progress of the presentation, and we will come back with some themes as we go through the question and answers section. The presentation itself will be pretty short from my perspective. I'm hoping that Professor Malloy will be able to give you the detail that you need related to the program that you have chosen in terms of having an offer for. The process is that we are obviously looking to provide clarity in these uncertain times for students, and we have talked about the idea of an online on time. The rationale behind this is that we want to ensure that you are able to progress to your career goals in the time frame that you had already determined, and that you will graduate in November 2021, and everything will stay on track for you. We are also aware that there are lots of uncertainty about travel, about quarantine times, and to allow you to have the access to an optimal academic experience, this is the way that we are suggesting that this goes through, this is done. I think it's important to note, and I know that Professor Malloy will detail this during his presentation, this is not a new form of delivery for DCU. The ability to be able to work with students and provide this content in an online manner has been in place for a number of years. The purpose, as I've said, is to ensure that you stay on track. We can come back to specific questions you may have about the logistics and the process. But for now, what I'm going to do is introduce you to Professor Malloy and ask him to take you through the details around the MSc in Electronic and Computer Technology, the MSc in IoT. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for the introduction, and thanks to everyone for attending and taking the time. So this is the MSc in Electronic and Computer Technology. The next slide, Paul, there, if you can, please. We call it the MSc in the IoT, in the Internet of Things. And the reason we have two titles is because what we're trying to achieve is to have a degree that's current, in that you would refer to this as an MSc in IoT, but it also has long-term standing. So for example, we want to be sure that if something goes wrong with the IoT and you have this master's, that we have a general title as well for the same program, so that if, for example, in 20 years time it's gone on to the Internet of Things 2, you don't want to be going to employers and saying, I have a master's in Internet of Things 1. Okay, so it's a way of us having longevity on the title. So as far as we're concerned, this is a master's in IoT, but it also has the title MSc in Electronic and Computer Technology with a major in IoT. So I'm sure you've all heard about the IoT at this point, but just in case there's a few people, most people I'm sure who've applied for this course know what the IoT is, but just in case, we see the IoT as being billions of devices communicating to each other and together, and interacting seamlessly into our everyday lives. So everything from smart homes, which I think is where people normally see Internet of Things and are aware of Internet of Things, but also in terms of sort of Industry 4.0 and the way that sensing will happen in the manufacturing plant, and devices will be able to do smart manufacturing. So it will affect everything that we do in the future, and many people see it as the next generation of the internet. So we've designed this program over a number of years. It started with a conversation where we worked with Intel in 2014 to design the program. They told us about their needs in relation to IoT, and then we looked at how we could extend that to other companies. In 2018, we developed a co-offering with SkillNet in the IoT space, where we worked with SkillNet companies. So SkillNet is an industry representative body in Ireland that is funded through industry contributions, and we work with them to design the program. So this program is very much designed with the needs of industry in mind. And now today what we're doing is we're extending this to a full-time program and making it available to international markets. So previously our work on this program has been for part-time. So what's special about this program? Well, the first thing is we are looking at a full stack solution in IoT. So we're looking at real and practical skills. So in this program, we do everything from the device right through to the cloud. So we do everything from a device sensing information about its environment, actuating devices in its environment, communicating over mesh networks and wireless networks, wired networks, communicating using the latest protocols, transferring information to the cloud, and then we even look at machine learning. How do you process the data and what can you do with the data in the cloud to get useful information from that data? So we do the full stack, and that's quite unique because normally when people deal with IoT, they either look at the electronic side or they look at the software side. We're doing both and we're fully integrating them together, and that's a real strength of this program. And that strength comes from the research that's taking place within the faculty. We have many research experts in IoT technology and networks and devices, and indeed in machine learning. So it's fortuitous. We have those skills, and IoT emerge and actually characterizes what we do very well. One difference as well about this program is that the project elements are more structured than what we have previously applied. So this came from, again, conversations with industry, in that we looked at what are the needs of industry with respect to the program. And they're very much of the view that the research that takes place, the sort of the capstone project within the program, should be quite applied to industry relevant problems of today. So that means that we've had to structure, so there's RD&I, research, development, innovation, training, and then there's a project element to it as well. Next slide, Paul, please, if you can. So coming in, and this is with taking account, these slides have been designed to take account of the current circumstances with COVID-19, and there's uncertainty across the world in terms of what will happen in September, October, what will happen next year. Let's hope everything works out well. We hope for the best, but we plan for the worst. So in this program, we have a semester one entry, which is the entry that I'm sure you've applied for if you're on this call. So usually what happens is that in semester one, you will do 4 to 5 modules. So in total, you have to do 9 modules as part of the program. But in semester one, you do 4 to 5 7.5 credit modules. And in semester 2, you do 7.5 credit modules. And then you go on to do a 3-month project over the summer. So it's quite tight. It's very hard work. And that's the same for all the master's programs we offer in DCU. They're 90 credit programs. In this faculty. So you're doing 9 modules in total over 12 calendar months, which is many universities would call this trimesters. Really, we have semesters, but we have 3 in a year, which is slightly unusual. So we have 4 modules, 4 to 5 modules, plus the project elements over the summer, and you have from September to September. It's a 12-month calendar year, and you have a master's at the end of that. So that's the current situation. The plan this year is that in semester 1 we will look at doing those modules online. Using the online sort of framework. We are used to doing this. I'll talk in a little while about how we deliver and how we support learning with online, but this is nothing new to us. We have been in our school, in School of Electronic Engineering, we have been delivering programs online for more than 20 years. We started in 1997 delivering online and on campus. And we've had a flexible model for many years, because what we do is we as our master's program, we have a lot of part-time students who are in companies in Ireland like Google and Microsoft and Intel and all companies that related to electronic and computer engineering. And what we do is we allow those students to attend lectures, and then they can go off and attend online the following week, or if their company says they have to travel to the North America for a few weeks, they can continue their program. So we've always had a flexible offering within the school. So this is quite usual, normal for us, and it's you know, it's considered to be equivalent to the on-campus lecture. So we're used to this model. So we're going to apply that model again to semester 1. So that would allow students to continue their studies, or in this case, begin their studies online and then continue to an on-campus model for the remainder of the program. Okay, next slide, Paul, please. So that's with semester 1 entry. We also offer semester 2 entry to this program, which means that instead of beginning in September, we also offer a January start. Now, the time period is slightly longer in terms of the calendar, but it's the same amount of effort. It's just spread out more evenly over a period. So this can be a little bit it might can be slightly less effort on a weekly basis for over the program. So for example, in this, you'll see I've just drawn out one possible route, which is that you would take 3 modules. You could take 4 modules in semester 2, which would be a January start. Then in June, you would have about a month of online learning. So that would allow you to travel or to take work for 3 months roughly. So there's about 4 weeks of module content related to this module on research, development, innovation, training. And then in September, you'd start back. It's September, it sounds so far away. It's September 2021. You would then do another 3 or 4 modules, and then 3 or 4 modules the following semester. So in total, you have to complete 9 modules, and then the final project element. So it's the exact same 90 credits, 9 modules plus the project elements, but it's spread out over a longer period. Next slide, Paul, please. So this is the current structure of the and I'm not going to go through all this. This is online on our website, but I'm just going to fly through it quickly just to give you a flavor of what's in the program, just to make sure you're aware. So for example, if you look at on the left-hand side at the top, there's green modules, a green box, and these are what we consider the essential skills and competencies. So for example, we make sure that students are up to speed with the skills that they need, and really for this program, a good fundamental understanding of programming is needed, and we provide that through a 7.5 credit module on OOP with embedded systems. Also, mathematics is important to every flavor of engineering, particularly if you're looking at data analytics or signal processing. So we build the essential skills in those 2 modules. And then there's other optional modules as well: wireless, web application development, and bioelectronics. So you're allowed to choose up to 4 of those 5 modules. On the blue box on the right-hand side, then there are 6 modules, and you must complete at least 5 of these. So they include connected embedded systems, which follows on from object-oriented programming, signal processing, real-time signal processing, data analytics, network stack implementation, which is about network communication, security for IoT networks, which is obviously security is vital for anything to do with IoT, and then entrepreneurship. Interestingly, the last module there, entrepreneurship, was a requirement of Intel. It was their view that if people had all these essential skills in IoT, that they should be able to apply them to their company environment, or to develop new business ideas against them. So entrepreneurship was very much industry led in terms of its presence on the program. At the bottom, then across the bottom, you can see the project elements. There's the research, development, innovation, training, and then there's a project element. And these take place if you do it in September. If you start in September, you can be finished. You can do these in 1 summer period. But if for semester 2 entry, they're spread out over the 2 summers. So those elements have to be completed as well. So that just gives you a flavor. There's a lot of detail there. There's a lot of information there, but it's just to give you a flavor of the type of the subjects that are present. So you can see very much everything from embedded systems to web communications to wireless to bioelectronics for wearables, to signal processing for data acquisition, to network communication, and right through to data analytics and machine learning in the cloud through web application development. You can see that there's evidence that the full stack is covered by those subjects. Go on to the next slide, Paul, please. So the way that we deliver online, and have done so for quite some time. So we've been using, for years, we've used web screencast recording. So we'd use programs like Camtasia or Flashback to record desktops of lectures, and that content is recorded and made available to the students online. So one element of the online experience is the fact that you have the same content that the students would have in lectures, and we'll continue to do that. The lectures will be more for the coming year, depending on the circumstances. The lectures may be academics recording the content at home and making videos of the content and talking through the content there. But that's just one element of the program. We deliver through our online environment called Loop, and we deliver all content through there. We deliver all assignments, we deliver all our notes, all our slides, all our reference papers. In the case of a master's program, you'd be reading journal papers as well. We make everything available through our online environment. And that online environment supports discussion forums and interactions directly with the lecturer. There isn't tutor support. There aren't, it's not like you will be interacting with teaching assistants as your predominant contact. You will be talking directly to the lecturer for that, to the professor for that module. So interaction with each other as a cohort will be through Loop, will be through Zoom, will be through Zoom calls. So we're well set up with the technology to allow a fully interactive learning experience. We always try to use open source software where possible, because it means that you can install all of the tools that are needed for your module directly on your home computer without a cost. So things like that, we use GNU compilers where possible. We do use some open source hardware. So for example, you might be expected to purchase a Raspberry Pi or a board like that. They're typically low cost boards. We don't pick anything expensive to keep the cost down. And this year, for the first time, normally we have done the exams on campus in exam halls. This year, for the first year, because of the circumstances around COVID-19, we actually ran the examinations online this year. And if you can go on to the next slide, Paul, please. What we did there this year is we spent a good bit of time. In fact, we've been very busy despite the lockdown. And one of the biggest things that is sort of keeping us busy is the assessment. We've worked very hard to ensure that we can give a good assessment that allows students to express their knowledge very well in an online forum. And we've done that by doing things like, for example, individualized exam papers. So for example, we provide different sets of questions to different students, or we provide different components that you have to write about for different students. This is to ensure the integrity of the examination, that it's, it's an individual contribution. We've supported the students online with online supports, with Zoom interviews where necessary. And we're also, everything we do is subject to external examiner reviews. So as part of the process within DCU, there's a quality assurance piece that sits on top of our programs, which is run by the registry. And they ensure that everything, the steps that we're taking, everything we do about our assessment ensures the quality and assesses the learning outcomes of our modules. So the quality is very carefully reviewed. In addition to that, we have to present evidence to the external examiners of our programs who are appointed by the university, and they have to make a statement that the quality is present as well. So we're very much aware of the quality of our programs. In addition, for engineering programs, which is where we sit, our programs are accredited by Engineers Ireland. So that means that they're recognized internationally, recognized across the world. And that also brings with it a burden of ensuring quality in our programs and ensuring that the assessment is strong. So it means we can stand over the quality of the program, just as if the students were sitting in our lectures and attending the lectures and attending the examinations in person. We can sit over the quality of our program despite the difficult conditions around COVID-19. As I said to you earlier, we've been delivering online since 1997. That's quite a long, in years, it doesn't seem too long, but in internet years, that's a long time. We were very much offering programs online from the very beginning of the internet, or the web anyway. And our programs continue to be fully recognized by industry. That's very important. You know, the students that have come through that are working in Google and working in Facebook and eBay and all those companies around Ireland have been exposed to our master's program and have probably taken lectures online as part of that program. So they understand what that program is about and what it means to be taught online. And the next slide, Paul, please. Oh, have I another? Is there recognition? Yeah. Yeah, I think have I finished all my slides, Paul? Yeah, I have. Yeah.
You have.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thanks, Paul. I'll hand back to Paul now for further information.
Thank you, Derek, for taking us through that. I think the couple of things I just want to highlight that Derek has mentioned there that I hope you take away from that. One is that the quality of the program is not diminished in any way, and in many ways this is an adaptation of a mechanism that they have delivered for a number of years. There is a January start if students remain concerned about travel and other options for a September start. So there is a January start. It is a longer period of time. It does provide a bit more flexibility and an opportunity for students perhaps to balance, particularly if they have working and other commitments as well as study. So what we're trying to do is provide as flexible a program to students to ensure that they can stay on track as much as possible. It is important also to say that this is not a distance education program. This is the same program that you were due to start in September. The delivery model may be slightly different, but you will be a student of the university. You will access the academics and you'll interact with your fellow students in exactly the same way, but through a different methodology. I've just put up there the essential criteria that has already been communicated in terms of how you go about applying for the online on time, and we're happy to answer questions related to that through the international office. If you do have any questions, please put them into chat now, and my colleague Bridget and Colin will gather those together. The important thing that I mentioned earlier on is that as part of this process, you remain a student of Dublin City University, and as well as the academic rigor that Derek has outlined there, you will also have access to the additional supports that are available to all students of the university, including things like the Maths Learning Centre, student support, and careers service. So you are still able to work through the acquisition of key skills to ensure that you're employable. I might just actually go back to Derek for 1 second here in relation to this. There has been some questions in relation to how employers will view this delivery mechanism. And I know that Derek has already outlined that employers are aware of this, but I just want to perhaps get validation from Derek that the industry partners see this as a valued program.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, as I said, we stand over the quality, and one element of that is the content. So we have to make sure that everything that we say we're going to cover as part of our program is covered. So we have to do that regardless of whether we're in classroom or online. We still have to cover all of the content, and that's what is assured by the registry and the external examiners, and indeed our interaction with Engineers Ireland. So everything is covered in terms of the learning outcomes, and the learning outcomes define what our program is about. So, you know, we can be sure if that's the case. However, we're also have to make sure that the sort of industry partners are kept in the loop. So our research informs what is on the program. So when new technology appears in the IoT, it has to be included on the program, and that comes from our researchers' interaction with companies as part of their research. And then we're very much aware of what, and to some degree we're involved with industry, but we're also leading industry, in that, you know, companies that would come to us would like to know, especially smaller companies, would like to know what the leading edge technology is, and that's provided to them to the university. And many of the students who sit on this program are people who want to bring IoT technology to their company. So it's leading industry and also being led by industry. Some of the things that we're doing online are our industry has said to us are very important. So for example, things like online presentations, working online, working in groups as part of online work, they're all skills that companies are looking for, because they face the same challenges, especially in relation to COVID-19, has made it clear that, you know, there's technology needs there, even in the way that people learn. And engineers don't just stop learning. You learn all the time. You have to be able to continue to learn after you complete your master's. And being exposed to online skills and techniques will allow you to better develop yourself for sort of lifelong learning as well. So I think there's a lot of positives, even if you want to try and draw positives out of a terrible situation. There are positives in terms of our learning experience, and companies will be aware that those skills are needed. So every company I've spoken to, you know, is short on staff at the moment. Still, you know, we're a sort of a technology hub in the IoT space in Ireland at the moment, in Dublin especially. They're short on staff, so skilled staff are very much welcome. There is nobody would say that an online program in this form with a bricks and mortar university is any way less than if the students were sitting in the classroom. That's for sure.
Okay. Thanks, Derek. Hopefully that will provide a little bit of reassurance to any of you who had that concern. As I said, the number of supports that are available will continue no matter what your location is, and we will ensure that they are available to you. I think at this stage, Bridget and Colin, I'm going to hand it over to you if there are questions that are coming through from the chat.
Great, thanks, Paul, and thanks, Professor Malloy, for that information. Hopefully it was helpful for students. There aren't a ton of questions coming through, so hopefully that means that a number of the points raised address some of that. I suppose one coming through on the chat for Professor Malloy is really around the area of labs and how that might be affected by online learning, and maybe a little bit around what the structure of those lab kind of sessions or piece of the program might look like.
Sure, yeah. So labs are a feature of undergraduate programs, but not really a feature of postgraduate programs. So in a postgraduate the big difference between a postgraduate program and an undergraduate program is that in a postgraduate program, you're much more responsible for your own learning. Laboratories tend to be quite recipe driven and quite structured to the point at which you follow the steps to get through a lab. So we've never really had labs as part, and I think that's consistent across most universities. There aren't really structured labs as part of a master's program. What we have instead is very, very well defined assignments that have independent learning built into them. So for example, to get interaction with equipment, or to write software, or to design something as part of your project, or to design elements as part of assignments, that's supported then within our online environment, in that you would be using equipment. For example, let's take one module, Connected Embedded Systems, which is one of my modules, which is obviously very relevant to IoT. Students would design a device driver against a embedded device that we make available, and they would typically have their own Raspberry Pi or BeagleBone board, or a board with embedded Linux, and they would design software to interact with that device. Then the following assignment would be they build a full stack IoT solution using MQTT, which involves installing virtual machines on their laptops and then writing code on the Raspberry Pi device to communicate back and forth. So we don't have labs, but we have very much independently driven assignments that are supportive of learning, if that makes sense. Okay.
Great, yeah, thank you for that. Another question coming through from Haven: if the online semester one is more around projects and assignments, or is it going to be sort of more the theory based types of modules in semester?
So all of our, when I showed you the structure with the nine modules, each one of those modules is an independent learning element. Okay, so if you thanks a million, Paul. So each one of these modules is an independent learning. Okay, so all of the elements, the theory, the practice, the assignments, the final exam, is tied to that individual box. So if you look at, for example, connected embedded systems on the top right hand side, you can see that takes place in semester 2. It's 75% exam and 25% continuous assessment. That's the way that the module is structured. So the theory and the practice is contained within each one of those blocks, and that's consistent for all of the other modules that are present. The only difference there is the ones at the bottom, the research development, training and project planning, and the MSc IoT project. They're very much practice. Now, as part of that, it's research. You research into the state-of-the-art techniques and technologies that are suitable for solving your challenge, and then you apply them to a project design. And it's very much student-led in terms of, you know, what the outcome of that element is. It's a capstone project. So effectively, it's not that there's a structure where you do labs in semester 1 and practice in semester 2. Each one of these individual blocks is structured to allow that flexibility so that they're contained in the blocks. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that is a really thorough answer and hopefully gives students a good oversight of what to expect. Derek, there's a question coming in around the fact that students won't have physical access to the library to access books. So how will they, I suppose, obtain course materials and do research without that physical access to the library?
Sure. So in the case of the course materials are provided by the academics. So typically, you know, typically the materials are available in electronic form. So that's always been the case. We don't rely on paper books really for the program at all in terms of the modules. So there will be course notes, there will be calls out to research papers. All of those research papers, once you're signed up as a student within DCU, you've access to online journal papers. There's it's like a, how would you describe it? It's like a login system in the library that allows you to log into that, and then you have access to search, you know, IEEE Explore and journal sites like that. So we have, you know, we have access for all of our students, all our registered students, to those journal sites for free. So that would be more likely the case where you will be looking for information for your program. We provide the materials and all the links to the materials through Loop, so everything is, you know, you're not sent off in 1,000 different directions to say, look here and look there and look over there. It's all structured to our learning environment through Loop. We give links within our Loop modules to all of the materials that are needed. But as I said, they're generally provided electronically. In the case of connected embedded systems, I keep going to that because that's my module. I've written the book on that module, so it's available online as a paper book. But I also make available, thanks, I have an agreement with the publisher, with Wiley. I make an electronic version of that book available to students through Loop for them to download and use for the module.
Great, that's excellent. I think, you know, just to highlight to students as well that we do have a dedicated email inbox for students to ask questions as well. It's int.pg2020 at dcu.ie. And Derek, one of the questions that's kind of come through in that inbox is really around sort of the group work or group projects and maybe how students will interact with their peers, and how that's maybe facilitated through the online model in terms of working together.
Yeah, so some modules in particular, they entrepreneurship module have group elements to them. You know, students, some of it is structured, some of it is unstructured, and students are very good these days at using technological solutions to communicate with each other. So the structured part is the part at the beginning of the module where the lecturer will set up groups and will make lists of students in those groups available to each other. We have facilities within Zoom to do breakout rooms and to allocate people to breakout rooms to allow them to communicate, and then the lecturer can move between those breakout rooms. More often though, because it's at the master's level, and the mix of people will be across multiple, you know, there'll be part-time students, full-time students. Generally, students themselves arrange the to meet up through Google Hangouts or whatever, Google Meet, or through other mechanisms that I don't understand. But that's often the case through chat rooms. Students have communities together. So there's the structured sort of interaction between students, and then there's the sort of the organic interaction that happens between groups of students as well. And we're not overly controlling in terms of how we don't force students to use a particular platform.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much. So we're going to make a last call for any other questions to come through the chat. Otherwise, I think we've kind of covered quite a bit of information, a lot of food for thought for students. So if there's anything else, please feel free to drop it in now. Otherwise, I think we may be ready to wrap it up.
Okay, well, if we're moving to a wrap up, I think what it's important to say is that while we are moving to a very uncertain time, the DCU and all of its facilities remain open. It may be through a virtual or online experience rather than in person, but the university president issued a statement on Friday, and he has indicated that for all students, so this applies for whether you're non-EU, whether you are a domestic student, an EU student, we are moving to a hybrid model for all program delivery. So for many students, the beginning of the semester is likely to be online. And as the restrictions lift and we are allowed to have more activity on campus, we will move to that space. So what we can expect is that over time, that it'll move from an online to an on-campus experience, and that we will balance that to ensure that people, their safety and that their learning outcomes are in line with what would be expected. The International Office is available to answer any questions that you might have in terms of application, offers, visa processing, any of those areas, or accommodation. So if you have those questions, please do send them through to INT-PGT, sorry, I have to look back at what it is. It's int.pg2020@dcu.ie. If the question is academic related or related to the program, we would normally ask those to be directed to, or we will work to have them directed to the faculty who can answer the questions related to the program. I think that you'll all agree that Professor Malloy went through a high level of detail around the program, how it's structured, how it will be offered, and also that the one thing that is not being compromised at any point is the quality of the program that you're going to study, and also the impact that it can have in an industry environment. So I think if there are no other questions, I'm just going to thank Professor Malloy for his detailed insights. I'll thank Bridget and Colin for their patience in going through the queries online. But just to reassure you that the university remains open. We are available for questions. We do hope to welcome you to the physical DCU campus, but to rest assured that if you do proceed to the online on time, that you are a university student, you do have access to all of the services and the supports that are available, and that we will work with you in as flexible a way as possible to ensure that you graduate in 2021 and continue to your goals. So thank you for your time and attention, and if you do have any questions, we look forward to answering them in the future. Thank you all, and bye for now.
Thanks, everyone.